What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Seoul Therapy, the podcast. My name is Daniel.
Daytona.
Today, we will be going back to the past and discussing in depth about what could have been one of the most influential and one of the most impactful Korean hip hop crew called Illest Konfusion. And also, we'll be talking about how one of the former IK member, Jtong, has made a surprising appearance with Dingo. As usual, if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast on all streaming platforms and don't forget to give us that 5-star rating. Also, for more contents, please go and follow our socials at Seoul_Therapy, and also please support our page on Patreon at patreon.com/join/Seoul_Therapy. All right, let's begin. So, many K-hip hop fans out there know about so many different labels and artists because Korean hip hop has come a long way. But before K-hip hop scene really grew, the K-hip hop scene in the past was pretty much obscure. And now that we have and had labels like AOMG, VMC, Illionaire Records, and etc., there used to be an underground crew by the name of Illest Konfusion that was on the rise. The crew had notable and iconic members in Simon Dominic, Swings, Beenzino, SENS, Beatbox DG, Garchang, J Hoods, Rocky L, and Jtong. While the crew not only disbanded early and never put out an album, it left us lots of questions and self-interpretation as to how this crew could have made a significant impact on the Korean hip-hop scene. So I guess my first question becomes, what kind of impact do you think IK would have made if they stayed?
They probably would have put out one of the most revered compilation albums in Korean hip hop history. Probably. I mean, no one knows what exactly would have happened, but the fact that everyone from that, not everyone, because there were a lot of more members for Illest Konfusion than people think, but there were a lot of the members there are now OGs of the game.
Of course.
Yes, and all of them putting out an album together on one album would have been an issue enough, and it would have been a very significant event in Korean hip hop history, I think. But at the end, it never happened. So
yeah, that's really unfortunate because in my thought, I would have seen Illest Konfusion as one of kind of like a powerhouse. I think they would have changed the Korean hip hop scene in so many different ways, not just musically, but just the lifestyle that they kind of went and such. So
I think the reason they kind of disbanded is because of the lifestyle. If you think about it, like Simon Dominic and SENS and Jtong and Beenzino, Rocky L back in the days, and many members went on to different musical paths.
Yeah.
It's not like none of them are friends anymore, because not all of them are friends, because there has been some messy shit. The whole control this thing. The control incident, that probably damaged relationships between members and with ESENS and amoeba culture and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And no one knows the backstory, but Jtong was an important part of that control this, not because he made a track, but a lot of people talked about him on the track. Basically the entire exchange between Simon Dominic and Swings was about who's Jtong a friend of.
Interesting.
Yeah, Simon Dominic is saying, nah, he's my friend, and Swings is saying, nah, he's my friend. That was the exchange between the control responses. That was one of and how Jtong got kind of fucked over by amoeba culture, but then he got kind of fucked over by Just Music as well.
Oh, wow. Interesting. I had no idea. Jtong was part of amoeba culture. I had no idea.
Yeah, he was probably a member of Just Music first, because the Busan EP came out of Just Music.
Oh,
which
no
is
way.
his first recorded music. Like that,
Right.
the CD was pressed by Just Music, and then his second album, that was an EP Busan was an EP, and the first
Right.
album, which was called Mohican and Being Barefoot or whatever,
Yeah.
that album was released by Amoeba Culture, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
So it was this whole thing about how Swing saying that Simon Dominic took Jtong from him, like gaslighting him and kind
Oh.
of stuff. And Simon Dominic is saying, I didn't gaslight anyone. It was you who treated him like shit. Like, no one knows the facts, but that was basically what the Control Disc was about.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. If you look into the lyrics, like if someone has the translations to the Control Exchange, you can see at what part Jtong kind of played, although he didn't play anyone. Like Jtong
Oh.
was caught in the middle. Like Jtong was more like like he was more about who rapped better. But everyone talking about Jtong was getting really personal. I know what I mean.
Yeah,
And
that
then
sucks.
and then you had SENS and Amoeba Culture with having their own problems and Supreme Team breaking up and all of that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of finished Illest Konfusion because I'm not sure if the crew still exists. That school because the crew kind of still exists in its own right.
Hmm.
Because if you go on Instagram and let me check real quick.
It's not like they officially disbanded, right? They never announced like, oh, we officially disbanded the crew. They just
Yeah,
kind
it
of
was
faded away.
yeah, the crew just kind of melted away in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um do you know Jtong's right. See, if you look at Jtong's in IG tag, it says IK Buck Jtong.
Mm.
IK is Illest Konfusion, Buck is
Right.
Buck Wilds. So Illest Konfusion still exists. It's just that a lot of the members are not part of it anymore. Now, back in the days, if it was more of a musical collective, it seems like this time it's more of a just a friends kind of thing.
Right.
Because Swings is out of the group, eSense is out of the group. I think Simon Dominic is still IK.
Oh wow,
Beenzino is
interesting.
still IK. DJ Pumpkin of AOMG is part of IK, if I'm correct.
Oh, he was part of IK as well?
I think he still is.
Oh wow. I
Yeah,
had no
and
idea.
yeah. Of course, Beatbox DJ is there in there because
Yes.
of Beenzino and Hot Clips. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, the reason they kind of broke up anyway is because if you think about it, like, they had these personal issues, right?
Yeah, ego.
Yeah, ego and really, like, I think some fucked up business shit.
Mm.
If this was not more than I'm better than you, this was like, you did this to me, how can you kind of thing. And if you think about it, this was bound to happen in a sense because they all
Yeah,
make such different music now.
of course.
I think like Swings makes entirely different music from Simon Dominic. Essence makes completely different music from all of them.
For sure.
Jtong does it as well. The only reason I think Simon Dominic and Jtong are still kind of fucking with each other is because they come from the same hometown, which is Busan.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah, and I think that kind of like unless you have that kind of connection,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any reason for like IK would have stayed together anyway. Because even if it wasn't for some personal shit,
Mm-hmm.
I think at the end of the day, what they wanted from their music was so different.
Yeah.
Yeah, like no one is doing Jtong's crazy punk music kind of thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's talking about pine cones and fishing and
Yeah.
catching sea cucumbers and stuff. Like no one else does that in IK anyway.
Exactly.
I think so when it comes to like predicting like the what if question, I guess they would have put out like 1 or 2 albums, but that would have been it.
But I mean, at least with 1 or 2 albums, that would have solidified their
Yeah.
crew. You know, it's
Yeah.
just, man, I would have never thought that they would have been huge. You know, and all because of
Mhm.
like a diss track or just business issues, personal issues.
Exactly.
It's kind of scary if you think about it because
Mm.
this crew could have been something insane, but
Yeah.
because of little things like personal, egos and just, differences that, a crew can suddenly just crumble.
Yeah, I think there's a very weird not weird, I would say, but kind of conflicting relationship between the idea of a collective and hip hop culture.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, a lot of the groups in hip hop history, not just Korea, have had trouble because of ego.
No, of course.
At the end of the day, like hip hop is an art form that talks about your own personal achievements and abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a constant clash between individualism and collectivism, if you think about it. Like,
for sure.
like off the top of my head, I can't think of many groups that survived business clashes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the Wu-Tang Clan. Like there was some issues between RZA and Raekwon, but they still are like Wu-Tang Clan still is very solidly exists, right?
Of course.
But like even the greatest groups in history, like NWA broke over money relations,
Yeah.
ego problems, Public Enemy recently over political stuff, and Mobb Deep has some issues before, but they kind of patched it up. But then Prodigy passed away. Like there's not many that can actually talk about it. And even though like when it comes to musical direction, that's the reason Outkast doesn't drop an album anymore. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Andre and Big Boy does completely different things. And
of course.
during the end of their era, they released a double album, which was basically 2 albums.
Mm-hmm.
So with this many members for Illest Konfusion, like there's at least like 6 to 7 members that are capable of putting out albums on their own.
For sure.
This was bound to happen. It just happened earlier and in a much dirtier fashion than a lot of people thought it would have.
Yeah, it just seemed it ended on a really bad term. It wasn't healthy at all. And so it's crazy because I kind of was curious about this. So do you think moving on, do you think there's still plans with, Jtong, maybe like Simon Dominic, they would collab together and make like a small album as Illest Konfusion?
That was why I was so surprised to see that little Dingo snippet pop up and would disappear.
Yeah, same here.
Like, yeah, it's not just me. Like, literally no one thinks that IK was going to, like, come back together. And then Dingo suddenly, like, popped up. And they deleted it, right?
Yeah, like
it's
in
nowhere
an
on
instant.
cyberspace anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not online anymore. So when that snippet came up, people were like, really?
Yeah.
How? Like, because if you think about it, Simon Dominic, I don't think, and SENS are not fucking with each other anymore.
No, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. With a whole, I don't know what's the reason, but it's still like because they followed each other even after the whole Control debacle, right? And SENS having to go to prison and stuff. But then for some reason they disconnected with each other. Swings made up with Simon Dominic though on Show Me the Money.
That was really cool to see.
Yeah. Rocky L is still on VMC if I'm being correct.
Who is Rocky L?
All right. Actually Rocky L is kind of a wasted potential as well.
Really?
Yeah, because he was a great rapper back in the day. Like, he had a lot of names. Like, so you know how in the some episode before we recorded, I talked about the '08 mixtape boom, right?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, Rocky L was a part of that, and he was featured on those tapes everywhere. Like, it was just because he had several names at once. He had a very style that connected with Jtong, like the hardcore shit.
Yeah.
And he kind of went to VMC, and I think he's still a member of VMC if I'm being correct.
I have no idea about that yet.
Yeah, but he never released a solo project.
Huh. That's
he only taught he has a group, he's a member of a group called NP Union.
Okay.
Which is a brass band. And wait a minute. It's uncertain because the website doesn't say Rocky L. But when about last year, June, I think, when Noxar was doing something with Dingo, he said Rocky L was still part of VMC.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so it's like I'm not sure. At least he's still fucking with the whole VMC clique anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like the homepage is like the best anyway. You know, evidence of it because it changes
Mm-hmm.
all the time. Rocky L was a rapper that is the lead rapper for a bros band called NP Union.
Mm-hmm.
He has some albums under that category, but he never put out technically a hip hop album.
Mm.
So he's kind of a wasted potential as well. And NP Union didn't drop anything for a long time as well. So what I'm thinking is he's probably doing something else or something. I'm not sure.
Man, that's kind of surprising for, like you said, a wasted potential. Like, I would have never thought that someone would never drop a solo album. Like, it's just insane. It's especially
Um,
a talent, like you said, he had big talent, and for him to not
mm,
drop an album is quite surprising.
yeah. Like he's from Busan as well. It's too, and
Oh, interesting.
and we're going to talk about Busan today anyway. But it's just I always wanted to hear a full Rocky L project because he always like he was a really gifted rapper, and I
Mm.
just don't know where he is anymore.
Maybe that's just his intentional way of kind of, not making full length
Nah,
albums, maybe. I know.
that doesn't make sense because no one is kind of checking for him anymore. I mean, if you
That's
bring up
true.
the name, people will like, "Huh, where is he?" But no one
Yeah,
has come to the point where, man, where's that Rocky album? No one is actually talking about him anymore, which is sad.
true. Yeah, so I
Mm.
guess my quick question before we move on, it's
Mm.
so what kind of legacy do you think this crew could have left it if they were still together? Just from like your self-interpretation. I'm just
Like Illest
curious.
Konfusion is kind of an evidence, kind of historical artifact of the all way to like the early 2010s
Yeah.
Korean rap renaissance. And it was also a time and period where there were so many rookies that were seen to like really push hip hop forward. Like all of them
Mm-hmm.
had different tastes, all of them had different flavors, and all of them really rapped their asses off, so to say. It wasn't like they were going through a gimmick. It wasn't like they were
Of
trying
course.
to like just be a Instagram celebrity or anything. It was like they
Mm-hmm.
were serious musicians.
Mm-hmm.
And there hasn't been a movement like that for quite some years now. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's always going to be dope people, but it's like hip hop has fractured into so many different what do you call it, movements and stuff.
Yeah.
And this I think Illest Confusion was kind of an evidence that the rap game is still alive. It's
Mm-hmm.
not exactly about the rap game anymore. It's
Mm-hmm.
about so many other things, but I think Illest Confusion personally represents diversity and a certain amount of skill
Yeah.
combined. Yeah.
Without doubt. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like that how there's a very famous cipher clip that goes around the internet with
Yeah.
all members of IK on it. Like that alone is better than a lot of the ciphers that people are seeing right now.
That's
Mhm.
fact. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you showed it to me, and then I was watching it and I was just
Mm.
like, wow,
Yeah, they were great
this could have been
rappers. Yeah.
not just great, but these guys would have,
Mm.
created something even bigger,
Yeah. I think this is like there's so many dope albums that came out of Illest Confusion, like SENS's mixtapes, which are legendary status.
Mm-hmm.
Simon Dominic has a very great mixtape on it as well. The Hot Clip mixtape with Beatbox DJ and Beenzino is
Yeah.
great as well. And Jtong, although you can't kind of see it anymore, like you really have to dig through far through the internet to get it. Like he had the
Yeah.
whole Southtown gimmick down there too. Like I'm just like what the fuck happened to them? If they
Exactly.
remained, but if you think about it, like if they remained, I think it would have been more problematic.
Yeah.
If you think about it, because I think their styles would kind of blended together.
Yeah, they would have clashed for sure.
Yeah, they would have clashed, and like personal ego clashes aside, I think it would have been a very musically ambiguous group.
Yeah.
It's better that they split up and just did their own things.
Mm-hmm.
If you look back in retrospective.
For sure. It would have been insane. So yeah,
Yeah.
speaking of Jtong, recently a visual was presented with Dingo, and
Mm,
the visual was former IK members in collab with Dingo, and
mm,
I thought to
yeah.
myself, there was no way this will ever
That's
happen.
no, yeah.
There's just no way. And so I forgot about it. I literally forgot about it because I thought
Yeah.
Dingo was playing a joke. I thought this was
Mm.
another April Fool's joke. However,
Yeah.
however, a couple days later, a teaser trailer surfaced with a guy's face being hidden, and artists
Mm,
like you mentioned, Simon Dominic,
mm.
Lil Boy, and other artists were commenting about this individual, and then I had no idea who this was until I saw on the comments somebody was typing, "Oh, this is Jtong," and
Yeah.
I was like, "What? No way! What? No way! This is impossible!" And so
Mm.
I have to ask you, what was your initial reaction when you saw Jtong partnering with Dingo
Finally.
finally?
Yeah, because I was getting sick of Jtong not getting the exposure he wants to.
Mm,
Like, Jtong is a part of the Stone Ship Collective. It's a record label, and we had this talk about the record label without the flavor of a record label, like this
yeah.
whole about the record label not being a crew kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Stone Ship does that. Like even before the Quiet and Daytona came forward, like Stone Ship was already doing that. Like you had these completely unrelated artists just getting capital from a single entity and corporation, and that was what I was talking about. The problem is, just because they had never been a crew in the first place, there was very minimal exposure going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's great to see like Stone Ship beginning to capitalize on things like this. Like, and I think Jtong, because Jtong was very anti-media.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was anti a lot of things. He
Yeah.
was anti-media. He was anti-capital. Like he was the one of the few rappers that dissed Illionaire Records for being too secular.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, no one dare does that. Like
Yeah, that's just insane.
yeah. Aside from it, aside from whether you think that is right or wrong, like the dude really watches no one. Like dude cares about no one, what no one thinks. He was
Yeah.
just like none of these politics, everything aside. It's like no, if I don't like you, I don't like you, kind of thing.
He's him for himself, essentially.
Yeah, it's good to see him trying to branch out though.
Mm-hmm.
Because just because you're like fuck everybody doesn't literally mean that you should be fuck everybody. Like
Yeah.
it's good to see Jtong kind of networking out and exposing himself on media, because if you're starving, whatever you're doing, I want to tell you to stop. Like anything is better than starving.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, of course, if you think you have an ideology or you have a certain creed that you're going to adhere to, stay with it, of course, but
Mm-hmm.
really reconsider it, because at the end of the day, whatever movement, whatever political thought, whatever kind of artistic integrity you're going for, if you're starving, it's probably not sustainable.
Yeah, for sure. That's probably the one thing that every artist or anybody, is
Yes,
thinking
like
about.
even the most let's say it's like examples out of art. Like back in the like Cold War ages, you had a lot of revolutionaries, be
Mm-hmm.
it communist, anarchist, socialist, whatever. They never starved in a sense.
Yeah.
Like, of course they were hungry, but they were not like enough to like starve their soldiers or revolutionaries. Like if you're
Mm-hmm.
starving, it's unmanageable. Like that's if you think about and look at the history of those revolutionaries, is that they really did and tried everything to make sure their people didn't starve.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe in this age, like being fuck media on any kind of platform is probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
When Dingo first came out,
Mm-hmm.
I was one of the first proponents to say this is going to change the game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I thought that was the case since Flex, the whole Indigo music thing. That's what their first big project, I think.
Yeah.
Because their first big project was with Higher Music, but Higher Music was already like kind of big.
Established. Yeah.
Yes. Indigo Music was not as established, but they still managed to blow them up. Dingo did. And the reason I knew that was a game changer was because it was giving a platform to music that had no mainstream appeal whatsoever.
Yeah.
If you think about it, like Illinois Records had some sort of mainstream appeal. Their music didn't, but the personalities did. Like Beenzino was a classic handsome man, the quiet kind of too. They had their fashion and stuff on their side, right? They were not hipsters.
No.
They were independent, but they were not hipsters. So it makes sense that their music kind of made it through. But it wasn't exactly a template that anyone could follow, because it really depended heavily on their individual talents. It wasn't about some sort of crazy marketing strategy or anything. It was just personality over everything, and it worked. But it couldn't have been benchmarked.
Yeah.
What Dingo managed to do was, and Indigo Music managed to do, is put out a blueprint for hipster mainstream success. Because none of those personalities are exactly mainstream.
Yeah.
They're wackos. I mean, they were pretty weird guys. Like, now this is kind of common sense, but like people like Jackie Wise and stuff, like Korean mainstream hated that kind of thing. Like, why is she dressed like that and stuff like that? Dingo and Indigo Music kind of created a platform and blueprint for people with no mainstream success to go on Dingo and put out feelers here and there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And ever since Flex made it up there, Dingo has become a source of alternative media. You didn't have to go all through all the political bullshit you can like see on Show Me the Money.
Yeah.
And Mnet and what the establishment media tells you to do. Like, Dingo was looked upon as a very alternate source of media.
Yeah.
Now time has kind of passed a little, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, there's some rappers that are saying that Dingo is the same thing. Like, because any kind of alternative method, as time passes, it becomes viewed as a new mainstream thing.
For sure.
So, yeah, and a lot of rappers are kind of, not a lot, but there's a substantial amount of rappers that are saying, Dingo is not that much different from Show Me the Money. And they do have a point. But you should still reconsider, because one thing true about Dingo is this is way better than whatever you're going to do on Show Me the Money.
Oh, without questions, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, you will not reap as much as a result as being the winner of Show Me the Money. But at least Dingo will highlight what your fans like about you instead of what the audiences will laugh about you.
True.
Like, Show Me the Money has a tendency to blow out your shortcomings and make the audiences and the masses in general kind of shit on it to get you exposure. Dingo actually highlights what's good about you.
Yeah.
So, in that sense, I think Jtong kind of was gravitated toward that. Yeah, because he's usually like, fuck media. Like, he was one of the quintessential fuck media kind of guys.
Yeah, he's very anti.
Yeah,
he's
very anti-media. But I think he saw that potential in Dingo and decided to, you know what, if it's these guys, I can trust them, kind of thing.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, Dingo actually has some sort of respect for this culture.
And I think it's great to see, Jtong come out and just, see the lighter side of him. I think it's been a while because, I've been listening to the projects that he had, and then, it's very raw, it's very gritty. And so him being on Dingo, I think it's such a good opportunity for him to just kind of show his other side, but also at the same time maintaining his true identity as Jtong,
Yeah.
Because I just love the idea of him just being in nature and just being who he is and just staying true to himself. And so that leads me to my next question is, what did you think about the whole project?
It was great. I think it was
Yeah.
great. You see a musical transition within Jtong.
Mm-hmm.
He used to be this super punk kind of
Yeah.
like there were two keywords in his music, which is number one is punk music and the second is Busan.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of toned down the punk.
Oh, he did. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, even his recent collaboration with No Brain is vastly different from what he used to do back in the days with No Brain,
Yeah.
Like back in the day, he rapped about smashing things.
Yeah, he was very
I mean,
angry.
not. By the way, because I think there might be a miscommunication here. He is like, I didn't mean women. I meant actually smashing things.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Like he literally rapped about breaking stuff.
Yeah, he was very angry.
Yeah, and there's if you look at the first album, like Mohican and Barefoot, there's one song about women, and it's a very weird song because it's not about. If you look at rappers usually talking about women, it's kind of misogynistic in many senses, and it kind of sexually commodifies them. But the weird thing about Jtong's track is he explicitly talks about breasts only. Like, and not in a sense like what do you call it? Like I can get as many bitches as I can. Like he talks about the breast in a very scientific kind of biological perspective.
Really?
Yeah, it's really weird if you're hearing about it. Like, what am I listening to kind of thing. It's not demeaning, it's more like a
it's very unusual.
yeah, and he has that tendency, and that kind of punk kid transitioned, and he's not still talking about mainstream stuff. He just changed subjects, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Back then he talked about his hometown, which is very rare for hip hop, by the way.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Let's talk about this first. The reason Jtong is such an important rapper is because he did what Outkast did for Korea. You know how Outkast, like in the 95 Source Awards, talked about like the South got something to say kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically what Jtong did here.
Oh, interesting.
He was actually about like, he was the first person to put forth what region, like the pride for the region he came from, even though it's not Seoul. Like, he was very proud of being from Busan, and he puts Busan imagery all over his music.
But didn't also Garion do the same thing? MC Meta?
Nah, that's different, because Garion talked about, the only time Garion did that was when it was about dialects.
Oh, that's right. Languages. That's right.
Yeah,
Accents.
he literally, like, Garion, and it was not like they did it as a integral part of their artistic like identity. They just did it kind of in a one-time thing. It wasn't like he's always rapping in dialect or anything, right?
Yeah.
Busan is a part of Jtong's artistic identity. He always raps in dialect. This is the Busan dialect, by the way. Like the way Jtong talks on his records and everything, that's all Busan dialect.
Yeah, I could tell when I was hearing all his songs that it's all from his Busan accent.
Yeah, there's a Busanite accent to it, and he talks about Busan. Like he even on records that has nothing to do with Busan. Like you can definitely hear Busan in his voices, and he talks about Busan. Like he talks about the baseball teams in Busan. He talks about yeah, that's the whole Sajikdong Changa thing. Like it's about the Lotte Giants, which is based in Busan, and he also talks about his hometown, like the stuff, like the sightseeing stuff and stuff like that, tourism spots and all of that shit. He actually puts it on record, like his favorite restaurants and stuff like that. And the whole, I think if I'm correct, the whole Dingo project he did was in Busan.
I think so. I think it was in Busan. Yeah.
So Busan, like, there were major, like, two components to his music, which was a very punk kind of boogeyman attitude.
Yeah.
And second was Busan. Right?
Yep.
Now, I think he switched out the first one because he's not as punk as right now.
Oh, no, definitely changed. Yeah.
Like the music, there's still punk music aesthetics, but he's not talking about punk like the boogeyman stuff.
No, of course not.
He's talking about nature instead.
Exactly.
Yeah, so now it's a transition. He transitioned into a guy who's from Busan that used to be a cultural boogeyman that talked about societal taboos in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
But now he transitioned to a Busan guy that talks about nature. Now, some people think this is kind of weird, but
Nah,
if you think about who Jtong is, and
exactly.
I'm just glad he's not like doing pop shit
Oh no, yeah.
because
I'm
no
glad
one,
too.
no one talks about nature. Like even in the
Exactly.
States, no one does that. Like, in the States, there has been this well-being rappers kind of thing on Netflix shows and stuff like that too, right?
Yeah.
But they never talked it about on their record.
True. Yeah.
They did talk about that in their music. This guy focuses his whole artistic identity around that, and that should be respected.
Yeah. For sure.
And I'm just glad to see he's kind of still trying to be unique as possible.
Yeah.
And I think he really did that well with the Dingo thing.
Oh, no doubt. I think like you mentioned about him in the past where he was very raw and gritty
Mm-hmm.
and then being very angry at the society and then now kind of shifting towards kind of like that calm, peaceful nature, but while
Yeah.
still adding his
Punk
Jtong
flavor
color.
to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jtong color to it. I think it just shows how he's a complete artist and that he's not shy to
Mm.
approach something different that is not what he would usually intend to go. And so
Yeah.
when I saw this whole episode, not just the songs, but like the whole content, I was very happy, but also it put me in a relaxing mood. Just seeing the ocean and him
Yeah.
taking us on an adventure,
Yeah.
you know, doing all the scuba diving, searching for seafood and, going rock climbing. And so, and I just love the songs as well. It's, the first one's about like the sea, and then the second one is about his favorite seafood. And so
Yeah.
he's just a character, man. Jtong is such a character. Like whether you love him or hate him, you need to give him the respect that he deserves, because I don't think I've ever heard an artist or seen an artist kind of switch gears in terms of their stylistic choices when it comes to the themes of their music.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, there has been, like, especially in Korean hip hop, you see a lot of style changes
Yeah, for sure.
because, unlike the States, as I talked about in many other episodes before this, like because the market is so small, it kind of makes you to force your style, your style to change, because you can't stay on one audience or else like your shit won't sell.
Of course.
And in a sense, the Korean hip hop market really reflects what Korea is like. You have to consistently think about what is going to sell. You have to consistently, it's more about being a circus rather than being an art. And
True.
which is not, it's essentially a bad thing, but I just don't like it. But one thing Jtong succeeded in is usually when they change their styles is to appease to what's trendy. But I don't think Jtong changed to become more trendy, because this is not trendy whatsoever.
Of course not. Yeah, it's totally
this
different.
Is far from whatever the trend is. This isn't it, whatever it is. And I'm just glad to see that. I think this is a better method of alternative music in a sense.
Oh yeah, for sure, most definitely.
And Korea has a serious diversity problem. Like on all aspects of society, be it art, be it social, be it demographic, whatever. And personal opinion from now on, being angry and making art off of anger is a double-edged sword here.
Yeah.
Because I think in the States, you can be angry for many, many different reasons. You have these, for every Rage Against the Machine, you'll have some bullcrap band like Trapped or something. like being the anti-maskers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe this is not just a Korean thing, but when I see punk musicians now, I kind of know they're going to fuck up at some point.
Mm.
And I think this might be a more productive change to Jtong's music, because in this like back in the like 80s or 70s, like there was a very clear divide about who's right or wrong.
Mm.
Nowadays the social movements and stuff are way too fractured. It's not just us versus them, it's about us versus us kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or them versus them. Like, it's so fractured. And being angry in such a society and putting out art that is based on anger, it has a very big risk factor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very hard to focus your anger on certain subjects that you know well about. It usually bleeds into things that you don't really know about, and you still end up being angry, and you really have a risk of hurting people.
Yeah.
It happens all the fucking time. And I'm just glad to see that Jtong, although I'm not sure if Jtong did it because he thinks as I do, but I think his past music's anger would have translated badly into this era.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Without questions, yeah.
Yeah, and this new method of alternative music, I think, is a much better way to portray the problems of this world.
Mm-hmm.
Recently there was this Hollywood trend about talking about how they don't wash. You know that?
No, never heard about that.
Like, these Hollywood fools talked about not washing to conserve water.
Oh, interesting.
Not showering. I mean, that's the pinnacle of hypocrisy, in my opinion. I mean,
Yeah.
of course, conserving water is a very good thing. It's just that if you're forcing people to stop taking showers, it's going to be stupid, right?
Yeah.
And
sure.
you saw the Netflix documentary about Seaspiracy, right?
No.
It's a must watch, and it basically talks about how environmental activists, mainstream activists, not actually addressing the issues that are problematic because they're being fed money from them. And I think Jtong kind of does that properly, because like most of the times if you have Hollywood people talking about nature, it's like, ah, shit, here we go again.
Yeah.
I agree what they say. It's just that they shouldn't be the people talking about it, right?
Yeah.
And I think Jtong kind of preaches what he actually talks about. He catches his own
that's
food.
A fact. Yeah.
Like, he doesn't, and mass fishing and stuff is becoming a real problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is what's fucking up the ocean, not these plastic bullshit. I mean, of course, plastics are a factor in that, but usually when it comes to the biggest problems with sea life, it's because of mass seafood and mass fishing and stuff.
Yeah.
And catching what you eat is actually a very admirable attitude to have.
For sure. Yeah.
So it's not like he's saying like, you should do this, you should do that. Like, he's showing it as an example.
Yeah.
And that's what, a good celebrity, and a quote unquote good, a quote unquote proper celebrity would be doing.
Of course.
No one is going to listen to you talk about the environment if you're eating wine and cheese on a fucking yacht, right?
Yeah.
And I think that in that sense, Jtong can be of pretty positive influence on it.
Yeah.
We don't need any more boogeymen.
Yeah.
We need people who can set examples.
For sure, yeah.
And a lot of the boogeymen of the past has failed to transition into becoming responsible adults.
Mm.
And I think Jtong is one of the very few examples that managed to do that.
Yeah. Definitely. You can just see his attitude towards kind of life. It's a lot more peaceful, but he's also kind of engaging in that civic engagement, because in one of the episodes you see him cleaning up the sea. He's telling he's telling his friends, hey, like, clean out, like, take out the plastic bags, or let's clean up this area for a bit and stuff. So he's setting by an example. So it's really good to see that. Yeah.
I think that is what that, although as like time passes, I'm becoming more and more ambivalent towards the concept of celebrity and fame, but this is one of the few examples where fame actually does something, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's just good to see that, because I kind of gave up on Korean entertainment being able to do that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these boogeyman figures keep disappointing me a lot of the times. I was very hit hard by what Marilyn Manson did. And you have, although I will not speak on it because I would just be giving a platform to lesser known artists, problematic ones, there has been lots of stuff going on in Korean hip hop that is incredibly like homophobic and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was very heartbreaking to see, because some of these artists, I gave them great reviews as well.
Yeah.
And start seeing underdogs like in the scene. Being underdogs, they're underdogs and they're still punching down, and it's not good to see. This whole boogeyman thing, I think, is kind of played out in a sense. And while being a boogeyman had its merits back in the days when there was a heyday of conservative censorship, that is not the case anymore. If you think about it, they flipped their strategy. Like, they talk about individual freedom, which is great, but they use it in a very different political context. They use that kind of dialect and use kind of that dialogue to give them the freedom to shit on other people that are lesser than them, like that are more disenfranchised than them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think the boogeyman perspective is being appropriated in a sense, so that it gives you an excuse to shit on people that are worse off than you, right? So while I was a huge proponent of growing up the boogeyman thing, because it was like, it has historical value in a sense when it comes to pop culture.
Sure, yeah, no doubt.
It is a methodology that really, I think, is more faulty now. We should move on from that in a sense. And being a very big proponent of hip hop underground, especially like East Coast underground, alternative underground, and punk music, it's very tragic, but also needed.
For sure.
Except for the musical aspects, I think there has to be some sort of evolution when it comes to the sentiment and the way we convey their messages. And I think Jtong is a great example of that.
No, I completely agree.
Yeah, this is actually one of the most mature ways, because he's not like he's not certain a sage or anything, right?
No.
He's not like acting like his Gandalf or anything.
No.
Yeah, he still has that kind of playful attitude.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
Yeah, and this is great to see. Like, so many boogeyman fail. Like, what the fuck are you doing kind of thing. And it's just great to see that Jtong is not one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I completely agree. Yeah. You know, and like you mentioned, he still has that edge to him, but at the same time, he knows how to control his life, like control his attitude. And so I think hopefully this is not the last time we see Jtong. Hopefully he begins to be more comfortable, and hopefully he gets to hopefully we get to hear another project from him.
I want an album. I need an album.
I think we all do.
Yeah, the only problem he has is that the dude really doesn't put out albums. Like, what the fuck?
It's for sure it's time.
Yeah.
So as we begin to slowly wrap up our show, as usual, any artist or tracks that you're currently listening to and would like to share or recommend to our listeners?
Since we talked about Jtong,
of course, yes.
Yeah. There's a song called Kepan.
One of my favorite songs.
Yeah, this was back in his punk days, and it's about smashing things. But there's two versions to it, actually.
Oh, okay.
The one on the Busan EP and the one on the Mohican and Barefoot album is different.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the first Kepan has just Jtong on it, and the beat it plays off a sample. It's still very
Oh.
guitar driven, but it's a very it's still sampled. Like there's soul sample in it, I think. I'm not sure what the source is. But instead of him like No Brain doing the hook, it just plays out the sample.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and the second version features the punk band No Brain.
Right, no brain, yeah.
Yeah, and it has a more live instrumentation feel to it, and
Mm-hmm.
it really goes hard as fuck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean both tracks are hard as fuck, but like the second one with No Brain has like shouting all over this stuff.
Yeah.
So if you're into rock music, I think you should listen to the second one with No Brain on it.
Yeah.
And if you're
Agreed.
more of a hip hop fan but still like that kind of alternative kind of thing, you would listen to the first one.
Yeah.
Actually, if you're like into like super punk music, I think you would like the second one better, hardcore punk.
For sure. Yeah.
And if you're more of a fan of the funkadelic maggot brain kind of era,
yeah.
that mixture between funk and rock, I think you would like the first one better.
Yep.
And Jtong's music is not on corporate platforms because he hates corporations, and he thinks that artists should deserve more. So you can't find them on streaming services. What you have to do is to go on YouTube, and there would be old music videos.
Yeah.
So you should check out them to listen to him. Or another method is for you to order the CD directly from his website.
Yep.
If you type in 솔방울 연구소 on Google, you will find his website. It means Pinecone Laboratory.
Yeah.
Which is such a great title. And he has all sort of goods about related to nature and stuff.
Yeah.
And while you might not like his goods, you can find his CD there.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure if he supports international shipping. But if you have a Korean friend, or you know what, try DMing him, I don't know. You might be able to get the CD too. So
Yeah.
just you whatever I'm just saying that you will not find his music on streaming services. So
Yeah.
shout out to YouTube, I guess.
Yeah.
You have to go for YouTube.
Yeah. So for my song that I chose, it's of course Jtong. And when you were mentioning Pinecone, I chose a song that was called Pinecone Rock. And it features
Yeah.
yeah.
That is actually on streaming services, I think.
Yeah, and it's featuring
Yeah.
Lowdown 30, and it came out in 2018. And man, this is a great song. That's all I can say. It talks about health and wealth. It's just you being healthy, and he talks
Yeah.
about eating tomatoes and
Eat
how
spinach.
eat spinach, eat garlic. That could help with your
Ridiculous, yeah.
with the illness that you're feeling, and then
Yeah.
start exercising because that'll
Yeah.
help you with your health and stuff. So
Yeah, actually that's on the Hueki album, right?
I'm not sure. I think it just came out as a single because I'm not too sure.
Look, I think I kind of misspoke earlier. The second version of Ketpan is on streaming services.
Yeah, the second was on iTunes or at any Apple
Yeah.
Music or Spotify.
The kind of funk rock version is not
That's the
on
one it's
streaming
not, yeah.
platforms, though. But with the No Brain one, with the
Yeah.
actual collaboration with the punk band No Brain, is on streaming services. So
Yeah.
type Jtong in, and you will see that some tracks are on there and some tracks are not.
Yeah.
So just, I don't know, listen to whatever that's on there, and it's gonna be good.
Yeah, and the Pinecone Rock is not on. It's on the Korean streaming services, but it's not on the American streaming services.
It's
You
not
can
on
only
the
find-
American streaming services?
No, it's not even on there. It's only on YouTube.
Ah, that's sad.
Yeah, so it's
But it's
really
on
rare.
YouTube. Yeah.
It's on YouTube, yeah. So
Yeah, see the music video too. It's great.
yeah, music video is
So
hilarious.
trippy and weird.
It's hilarious, and it's literally just about health, like
Yeah.
get well and get fit. That's literally all he talks about in that song.
He has a little bit of Buddhism imagery too. So
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
I guess if you have some interest in Buddhism aesthetics, I think that's another way to go.
Well, that's all the time we have for today, but please do comment and let us know what you think of today's topic. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please go and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms, and please give us that 5-star rating. If you want more K-hip-hop contents, go check out Daytona's Instagram at myk_Daytona for K-hip-hop album reviews, and also follow our social media page at Seoul_Therapy. Thank you guys so much, and see you guys next time. Peace.
Yeah, see you guys next time.